that's true. Microplastic is already in our bodies. And, if we previously spoke about the environment, we thought of, that lands are polluted, soils are polluted, oceans are polluted. And we do feel for that, of course, and we would want to change as humanity. But now it comes to even our bodies and animals' bodies. So it is much more close than ever, and than even we think. And that's why this is exactly the reason why we created S.Lab. And our solution is a truly green packaging that consists of only 2 plant-based components. And our material is a natural replacement of foam plastic or polystyrene or styrofoam. Basically the same thing for this fluffy white stuff of the packaging, which is also single-use. And the thing is that polystyrene or this foam plastic is not recyclable at all. So every single unit that was ever produced out of it still remains somewhere in the soils, in the oceans, and as you said, even in our bodies. So of course we want to change this, and even going further, I will show on the video how this packaging looks like. So for example, this is a lodgement for a device, and it is absolutely natural. Only 2 components. One is agricultural waste, and the other one is mycelium. And mycelium is a network of mushroom roots. So we use its binding power to create a strong and reliable material. So this way we want to help ourselves, help businesses to transition towards circular economy, which is an answer to many problems at the moment.
How did you come up with this idea? Because as I see, you have this degree in biochemistry, then you were working on different positions as product manager, project manager, and then you co-founded this company. So were you sitting with your co-founder thinking of, okay, which problem should we solve? Or was there a business request from somebody? So how did it originate? Because this is a deep tech development, and I'm wondering, and as our listeners too, so how and why you started this?
Yeah. We were almost sitting with my co-founder, but we were sitting on the beach of Bali in Indonesia, in this beautiful paradise place. And first of all, we are husband and wife. We've been together for more than 10 years already. I lost count probably. As you said, I had master degree in biotechnology, but my professional experience was more related to software, to managing people, processes, projects. And at one point of our life, we were digital nomads when we were working remotely and just traveling. And one day we found ourselves in Bali, in Indonesia, and we were doing surfing sessions. So one day we went to the beach to do another surfing session, but instead of this paradise beauty, we saw that all the beach was covered with plastic waste. And it was not, just a couple of items. These were huge piles of plastic. And these were like plastic islands. And Bali has this famous, in a bad way, trash season where lots of trash comes out. And of course, we knew, and everyone knows, that plastic is bad and so on. But when we saw this with our own eyes, we actually couldn't think of anything else, but started to discover what we could do as individuals, or we started to do the research to find what are the possible solutions, how basically you build the new material. And then we started to look on the market, what are the solutions there? So basically that's how our journey started with this, when we saw the problem and, just started trying to do whatever we can in order to understand it better.
Looks like two right people were at the right place and at the right moment. So you started this company. That's amazing. And can you share the major milestones when developing this company? So you've came through several stages. What were those?
So first, there was lots of discovery. And this was actually several years before we started actually doing something. So it was still on the back of our minds, and it was not our main job or, main work that we were doing. We were just discovering, still looking into the options. And one day my husband found hemp as a very strong plant that could be used in order to create a new plant-based material. So that's where we started. We reached out to the association of those hemp cultures in Ukraine, told them this crazy idea that maybe we would like to do something. And they were so fascinated with it that they just gave us a pile of hemp just to do our tests for free. And were super willing to support us in which way they could. And then with this hemp, we started doing some experiments on our kitchen. So like literally manual stuff. And then we had to find a glue that could glue this hemp together. Because, to create a new material, you need two components. One that gives strength and the other one that is binding it all together. So we already had hemp and had to find the glue. And we also, again, through the research, found the mycelium, that mycelium has such kind of features where it could bind agricultural waste together. And that's, again, what we started doing on our kitchen. We reached out to the Institute of Botanics in Kyiv, also explained our crazy idea to scientists that we would like to basically mix those two components. And the scientists were kind enough to find the best mushroom from their collection that could do that for us and do some basic training for us. So this was, I would say, the milestone number one, where we actually discovered that those two components work together. And if we mix them, we do get a strong and reliable material that has the same features as polystyrene. And then immediately we created some samples. And then immediately with those samples, we started going out, actually talking to people, to potential customers, to discover our potential audience. Because it could be lots of implementation or lots of ways to use this material. But we wanted to find the focus group, I would say. So we started to introduce this to several potential industries and quickly found a fit in the packaging industry. It was 2021, and it was after COVID time. So everyone realized how much of the packaging we used during the delivery. So it was a very right time. And the feedback was crazy positive. And we sold all of our samples, which we were not going to sell them in the first place. We just wanted to showcase them. But then people wanted to actually have this type of material and hold in their hands that we sold all of them. So we quickly understood that, we are up to something. And since we already knew that the mix works, we had some manual processes how to produce material. Then we understood that if we want to have an impact and go further, we have to build a technology around this material. So that's when we actually started to be a deep tech startup, because we started to invest into the technology, to create our own technology, to innovate, to constantly invest into R&D and hire engineers and take the best practices from all of the industries of hardware. So that was like a key milestone realization, that we had to build a technology. And at this point, I wouldn't say that it is 100% ready, the technology, but still, it's always in progress. But we already have 2 patents that we filed, 3 more that we will file soon. And then, of course, in terms of the customers, one of our first customers was L'Oreal, which is also a significant milestone. And this actually marks readiness and willingness of such big companies to shift towards other materials. Of course, it takes time to implement and to actually shift and transition from what they use currently. But readiness and willingness is definitely there. So I would say that also the key milestone was working with customers and introducing the solution. And we are sure that humanity and big corporates would be happy to use something different rather than plastic and foam plastic. They just need to see those solutions, and we need to work together in order to implement them.
That's amazing and very inspiring, the story you told us right now, because as I understood, your partner, he's also a scientist, and he was also working in this sphere before.
Actually, it's quite opposite. He's very far from being a scientist. He actually has a master's degree in law, but never worked as a lawyer, which is, I think, very common practice in Ukraine, probably. That we get an education and then we actually don't work within it. But I think this training in law, this made him very detail-oriented, and he can dig into many, many papers, into many documents, read through them, and then make a significant conclusions. So I think that's how he was actually able to build the technology. He's been researching and reading all of the documentation, looking into possible solutions, and then based on kind of compiling this all in his head, getting the best solution on how it could work. And like in terms of his own experience, his name is Eugene. Let's not hide him. So Eugene actually had an experience with hardware. He's been assembling production lines in the past. So I think this is something that he was meant to be. He was meant to be an innovator and creating technologies. So finally here with this startup, he can be who he is supposed to be, I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing this, because I think that some of our listeners who are to be startup founders, they are definitely looking for some traits which are really awesome for a startup founder. And for example, for some of them, they won't have this scientific background, but still, as Eugene's experience and your experience shows us, that you can still shoot for the stars and found the startup actually, and try to do what you want. Usually for IT startups, it's said, there is a saying that you should found a startup in your garage. And for biotech startups, it means the kitchen should be the cornerstone of the startup founding. That's
we
amazing.
Also had a garage at some point. So we've been through all of those stages: kitchen, garage, laboratory, and then proper production facility.
And customer traction, actually. This is not the thing that all of the startups can say at the very beginning, because finding product market fit is really hard, especially for hardware startups. So let's talk a bit about the how the startup operates right now, and what is current stage of development. Where are you now, and what updates and adaptations are you looking for in the upcoming future?
There are so many angles from which I could look into our progress and into our stage. Maybe the easiest is to tell about our funding or investment stage. So we closed our pre-seed round last September. And actually we closed it during the IT arena in Lviv, in Ukraine, as we raised, or the announcement about our funding, closing our investment round was on the stage during the winning ceremony. And we are about to open our seed round, which we aim to be first quarter of 2025. So this is in terms of funding, and we do already have customers. We continue to work with small, medium businesses, with corporations, gaining some more pilot projects. So as an example, we are in the middle of the pilot projects with JTI, Japan Tobacco International. We do lodgements for their boxes with the devices that they produce. So like very specific to what we aim to do, we aim to replace those lodgements for the devices. So we're working with them on that. And then in terms of the technology, we already built semi-automated production line, and we now are making it fully automated. So this is one of the next milestones, I would say. And if we talk about TRL level, so we estimate our TRL level between 6 and 7, and we aim to get, of course, to 8, 9. Let's be real still this year. And of course, really working hard on visibility and awareness of our solution, as this is the key. And of course, we need to talk money and implementation and using our material. So of course, talking to corporations, more and more corporations, building the pipeline of prospects, and feeding them with our solution. So I would say that's where we stand at the moment.
We've built a technology helping to automate IP licensing for brands and AI tools. We started out as a digital art platform. We were not focusing on licensing to any kind of industry like we do now. We started kind of with a smaller market in that case. And in early 2022, when we've received our first investment, it was our pre-seed round, backed by seed venture partners and Adrian Slivotsky. We've started building exactly the product, and it was a bit of an unfortunate timing that just 2 months after the launch, which was actually showing excellent results, and we had over 500 artists joining the platform, as a whole blockchain market went down and the recession started. So for artists, it was not enough to provide a platform which would cover legal, technical, financial, sales components. It was also a market situation which drove people a bit away from buying art, especially for personal reasons. I mean, not for business, of course. And we have seen that there is a time for change. And we, at that moment, got selected after like 7 rounds and spotlighted by Meta and L'Oreal Group. So it was early 2023 when we realized that we are definitely pivoting from working only with digital artists or with galleries and museums building digitalized NFT collections to a full B2B tool focused more on kind of more established market players, whether they would be design studios, gaming companies, music brands, art or fashion organizations, somewhere where, again, the impact and effect which we could give was more immediate, more urgent, and more clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that, first of all, doing pivots is a really brave move, but also it is a very successful move when we look at big companies, big tech and large startups. One of the cases that I love is Brex from Brazil, a fintech company that actually got into YC and they started to do VR headset tool without any experience in VR and, on the hype cycle, of course, of the technology, but nevertheless, then they realized that maybe timing is not right and pivoted to fintech, the same team from VR to fintech solution, right? And now they are multi-billion companies. So it's indeed, a heads up to many founders to look for opportunities, to look for a big market to work on and potentially, driving a bit towards the market that is maybe a bit more lucrative, right, to extend.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do hope that in the coming year we would be able to release like a simpler version of the product specifically for single creators, since of course our goal of empowering artists didn't go anywhere. It's just evolved more into B2B side. So we are currently working actually with 16 different companies and communities where that would be kind of a leader of the community who's providing and supporting artists. So we are kind of doing the same, just focusing more on bigger communities and entities rather than on every single person. So in some way, I would say that it's not a classical pivot when it's, one thing to a completely different one. It's rather a natural evolving of what we started building, and it came to us quite naturally, deriving from the market market needs and the feedback we were getting from customers. So I would say that another component here was also that we have 2 more co-founders, Alex and Anton, who joined us a bit later, actually in 2021, and who brought with them incredible experience, both from Amazon and from their businesses in AR, VR, and AI. So actually our whole technical team was built on the incredibly strong background in technology. But unfortunately, we are living in realities of being a Ukrainian team. And in September 2023, our co-founder, Anton Velichko, heroically died in the military ranks. So he was our CTO. And of course, it also led to us changing the technical lead in the team and understanding that to keep the vision, we still need to progress and to kind of bring the legacy of what Anton was building with us and evolve it into something else.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that heartbreaking story, unfortunately, and my condolences on that. Let's perhaps dive into our early days. I'll try to switch to our incubator and the values that Chuck with the team provided to you, and also your fundraising round, right? Having seed venture partners, one of the prominent VC funds in Ukraine, and also Adrian Slavodsky, right? One of the, I'm not sure if you can call him super angel. I don't know how much investments. Yeah, right. The super angel. Can you provide a little bit information on your initial steps, benefiting from the AO and moving toward the first fundraising round, pre-seed?
Yeah, I would say that when we came to EO, we were among just one or two, maybe two teams who were very kind of pre-idea stage even. So it was more a direction to which we were looking. Like, of course, that's understanding now. But back then, when I was pitching first time, I was sure that we have it all settled. I was like, here is the market, here is the team, here is the product. And then we started calculating how it actually is, and, you know, got a lot of feedback. I would say that if everyone could have had, every entrepreneur in Ukraine could have had this background which EO is given, then we would definitely match the opportunities level which are in United States or UK, for instance. Because to be honest, it's definitely a very big gap, which we currently have to jump to kind of match up with, with opportunities which startups are being given in United States, especially if we take the entrepreneurial centers, campuses. Back then, especially when we just started in 2020, EO was the only program available. Like right now, there are so many options, and there is also YAPS, there is also a lot of things done in Lviv, specifically in this area. But for me and Olga, coming from Kharkiv, it was, kind of zero to none options back then. So EO definitely shaped us in the vision and on how we should be taking the business, from the start. Helped us incredibly with market research and with understanding on, that back then it was not enough to build a marketplace for digital art. We needed to start with something more immediate and tangible. That's how we met Anton and Alex, who already had incredible experience and the first AR app built in Ukraine called Cimo AR. And we basically leveraged the network and powers of Anton's and Alex's experience to build virtual galleries app, which is currently not that active, but at some moments it used to be like we had 17,000 downloads and we had over 70,000 people interacting with our galleries, both in web and in mobile version, which helped us to attract museums, galleries, hundreds of artists, and also to get support from Ukrainian startup fund. Early back then, I remember that we got this first 25K grant to build a website and to build a portal where, the whole commercial part can even be realized in addition to virtual galleries, which we already had. So I would say, yeah, without the support, I'm not really sure that we would be, especially coming from already having multiple companies as founders, it would have been much harder for us to take this leap of faith and to switch fully in our focus to building a startup instead of, keeping a nice and warm careers and working, existing businesses in that case, if not EO and USF.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that for early stage startups, support is critical. And it's so nice to see many people and organizations first, giving back to the community, entrepreneurial community, especially those ones who succeeded and grew businesses. But also it's nice to see that in different regions of Ukraine, in Kyiv, in Lviv, and in a couple of other cities, we have a flourishing ecosystem, more and more programs on educating or providing some educational knowledge to be in incubators and acceleration programs, right? So it's essential and it's critical. But it's not just about the business expertise, it's also about some fuel and money, right? And you've been able to not only be in these programs, but literally quickly raise first pre-seed round, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit more about your experience raising that, how much it took in terms of time, and how you managed to have Super Angel and one of the most prominent VCs
Are you asking specifically about the pre-seed? Because in total, up till the current moment, we've actually extended our pre-seed twice and done a total of 1.4 million. So our initial pre-seed kind of got evolving and extending. Yeah. I would say that for...
Tell us more. Tell us about the whole experience of fundraising. Interesting to hear.
First checks are always the hardest because, it has to be not only somebody, believing in you personally, in your vision, in your market, but also someone who would be there to kind of do some hand-holding at the early stages, help you with introductions, working on business model, maybe working on the tech side. So for us, I think that Seed Venture Partners was a quite obvious connection since we've actually known the partners of it since we went actually both to Sigma and to IdeaSoft for consultancy and initial recommendations on the blockchain components of the platform, we were building. So it was quite an immediate connection. And when they launched the fund, we've been among the first 3 portfolio companies announced at the launch. With Adrian, I was introduced by EO team, specifically by Charles. And I think it's up to this day, the most amazing person we could even get attracted at the pre-seed stage. Adrian helped me personally immensely in growing as a founder, in understanding that, there can be a lot of tough decisions to do, because we also had to, switch the team at the moment when we were doing the pivot, because half of our team was coming from artistic background, and switching to like B2B SaaS, very tech heavy solution was a bit of a punch to our whole team, to be honest.
Who are watching this, and we communicate through our laptops, smartphones, we have our power banks in our pockets, and all of that is actually created out of material. All of that is created out of metals. And if we think about it, to produce only one smartphone, you need to dig about half of the ton of ore, so of material out of the ground. And so it's a first problem. So we have a huge need in our day-to-day tools that we use all the time. And on the other hand, if we want to have a green transition, if we want to have enough batteries, enough storage, we need to have that. And the problem that these both needs are actually in conflict right now. And the conflict is in the idea that, before 2030, we're going to have about 12 trillion shortage between what we have and what we need. So between supply and demand in minerals. With that in mind, we started thinking how we can help in that, how we can change the status quo, because if we just continue as it is, it will be not enough material. Of course, it will be recycling of batteries and upselling, all of that, but it's still not enough. So our problem is quite simple. We need to produce more materials, more minerals in the end of the day. I mean, if we're talking, for example, about metals, about copper, the production has to be doubled. It was never done in history of humankind. So it's a huge, huge, huge challenge. And with that in mind, we have started to bring in AI and more data to exploration. Because if you look at the life cycle of a mine, most of the time of a mine, which it takes this life cycle, is usually 12 years. About 8 to 10 years of it is just exploration, because it's really hard. It's time intensive. It's uncertain. People put a lot of capital there, and there's a lot of politics inside companies involved, politics inside countries involved. So we decided to shorten this period of time, at least to 2 years instead of 10. And with that, we will save a lot of money to companies who want to do exploration, and we will help to actually put more minerals and more material in the market, which actually will ease this problem between supply and demand that we have right now. So, what our viewers have to understand about the problem, right now we are moving really fast to a catastrophe, to a huge, huge, huge problem in which we will not have enough material. And our solution is to bring more data and more knowledge and more AI towards actually finding new deposits and helping humanity in a green transition. So that's basically, the problem and the solution in short.
Got it. And you just outlined that there is a 10-year of the exploration of these resources right now. Yep. And you want to shorten it up to 2 years. So with the help of what? How do you do this? And which part of the whole exploration process do you make shorter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to understand the technology, we use the metaphor, and the metaphor, you can choose whatever you like. It's rather the lasagna or layered cake. So we basically absorb about 52 layers of data. It comes from satellites, from ground sensors. Some data is provided by our clients. And basically we layer on top of each other. And basically our AI then goes through it and do a prediction. So if you think about how it's done right now, geologists would, underline the map or unveil the map on their table, see the map, and then try to pinpoint locations in which they believe there were geological predictions million years ago that actually formed some kind of a mineral. We can talk about metal, or we can talk about heat flow for geothermal. It really doesn't matter. So geologists trying to, I have a geological degree, one of our teachers said that geology is like solving a really cold case in terms of a crime. There is no evidence, there's nothing there already, but you have to understand what happened there just by understanding, something which was, discoveries were done by others. So it's really, really cold case. It's a case, which was done like million years ago. And geology, that's why it takes so much time. You have to put a lot of data in basically hands of geologists, and then geologists will try to understand what exactly to do with that. So we help them by already pre-collecting data, by working with it really hard. So a lot of people ask, so where do you get data? A lot of data is publicly available, but the problem is not the amount of it. The problem is quality and how to train AI on it. Because if you train, for example, your kid on really bad books, I think you'll end up with, kid being a not really good person and all. You give it, for example, a bad example to a kid. The same applied to AI. If you train AI on bad material, then AI will actually do really horrible outputs for you, really not connected to reality. So we work with data, we work with annotation, and we actually prepare it in a such way that AI can, in the end of the day, do predictions. And as drawing to your question, basically we lower amount of output which is needed from geologists, so they don't need to go on the ground on the starting phases. They need afterwards, but right on the start we don't need that. We can scan huge areas globally, so which is a big problem for them. Usually they use old school technologies like helicopters or planes. They fly above it. We can use it basically almost in any part of the world. So with that in mind, we help them to do decisions, because in the end of the day, geologists the head of geology or the head of exploration will do the decision. They will sign the contract, saying that we should go there. So it's a human in the end of the day, but we're helping this human to do a much more informed decision than they used to have before. So that's basically how we lower the time of exploration, and we lower time for them, because one really short thing I have to explain. Usually countries issue licenses for that. And there's two different types of licenses. One type of license is exploration one, and the second one is extraction one. And usually they take some time to go for both. But without technology, for example, they can skip exploration and, for example, start already acquired license for extraction. Or they can do much faster paperwork to applying for both licenses with our knowledge, and not to waste time, going for places where there's nothing. So they can make more strategic and more concentrated decisions in the end of the day.
Got it. So to me, sounds like you are digitizing the part of the process a geologist needs to have in order to explorate some mine, and you are shortening it up with the help of the data you're giving, actually the interpretation of this data. Am I correct here?
Yes, and we also bring something new and more to that. So some geologists, for example, are not using the gravitational anomalies or magnetic anomalies, and we actually already incorporate them inside of our model. So sometimes, they may be skeptical towards it, but because model is already one build-up product, basically, we actually give them much more than they would anticipate on using their own. Some people believe that geology is really strict kind of a science, where it's yes or no, but it's actually not. It's more like different schools of thought inside. Some believe in one thing, some believe in others, and it's always changing and always evolving. While we, with our geological department, we're bringing the newest ideas in geology, basically. So we are not only helping them do whatever they are doing, yes, but we're also bringing something new to the table. So we're helping them do even a better decision they would do without using our technology. So in essence, that's it.
Let's talk a bit about the clients and about the users. So like the buyers and the user side. So who, if you can, of course, name those companies. If not, just tell us, give us a hint who they are. Like, who are the companies who are buying your solution, as well as who are the users on the company side? Because I hear that those potentially are geologists, but probably the others are as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that the names will give our users a lot. I would just say that there's two types of clients, basically. We discovered the second one pretty randomly, but I will go into that. It's a really interesting story. Well, the first one is quite obvious, right? It's the huge corporations. You can look on them, on their capitalization. They're the multi-billion huge companies. We have some of the clients from them, and what they do, they just scan huge area. They buy up in chunks, like, for example, full regions of a country, for example. We scan it, they pay us fee based on the amount of land scanned, and off they go. We just give them the prediction, and whatever they do with it is their basically inner decision. We're not influenced in any way. And basically they are just doing a strategic decision. So it's the first business model. It's a B2B based on a fee model. So they're paying for some amount of data acquired, and then they go. Well, the second one was pretty surprising to us. We started selling. We tried to sell our services to a smaller mining companies because there are a lot. Market is basically fragmented. There's a small group of huge companies and a huge amount of smaller companies. So it's a kind of in between, right? There's almost no middleman. And we started to working with a smaller one, and we haven't received any big traction, to be honest. I mean, they said, yeah, technology is interesting, but they skipped us, or maybe let's return back after some time. And then when they stood, they're really low on capital. So there's not enough money for them, basically, to pay for our services. With that in mind, we have delivered them, we have actually developed, and right now we have 3 projects like that in Africa, in which we provide our services in kind. So, for example, we don't charge them money for that. Of course, we count the amount that we spend, but we don't charge money for that. But we take equity in mines. So we're taking part of their pie, basically, of their project. And then when they become more bankable, they become more mature, we can either sell it or we can keep it. So the value of our company grows as they grow. So basically the whole idea, we have this, 2 legs in 2 income streams. One, we acquire and we work, and we have a sales force to work with big, huge clients who are paying, us amount for scanning huge areas. And there's a wonderful opportunity, there's a multi-billion market for that. And in the same time, we're taking advantage of a growing need in material because we're taking equity parts in already existing market in which we are sure. So in future, for example, if you would, when we show that it's working, and for example, we successfully develop several projects, we basically become a kind of a quality stamp. So, if your project, if you want to start a mine somewhere in Ukraine, for example, and you use our services and we stamp it, we believe in you, and we took equity in your project, that means that it is a real deal. So we double validate ourselves. From one side, we use our technology, and from second part, we actually take equity in that. Regarding how liquid it is, so how fast we can sell, it's pretty liquid, because whenever a company is listed on a stock exchange, it happens pretty fast. It's not really long. It's like about maybe 2 years. When they have all the documents in order, they can go, for example, Toronto Stock Exchange, or in Australia, some Australian stock exchanges. When they're listed, we can sell our shares immediately, on the price which is there. So with that in mind, it's pretty liquid on one hand, and on the second hand, it actually allows us to balance our sheets. For example, if we, something happened and we don't have a lot of clients coming from a corporate sector, or, they're not interested in buying big chunks, we sell some equity parts and we still have cash on hands to develop our project. So this is basically the balance we have right now. And as I said, we have 3 projects in Africa like that one of them, which I can disclose, in Tanzania, a really beautiful place. And with bigger corporations, we usually scan the area. It's almost all the time is NDA, and we just give them the data, what we have discovered. So that's basically 2 models.